So I'm going to start up and just at least do a little bit of housekeeping before we begin today. So thank you so much on behalf of the entire CVMA for joining us today. This is our third of 3 weeks in a row. I think I finally got this whole webinar thing under wraps. So I'm the last year's and outgoing president of the CVMA. And it is my pleasure to introduce this webinar today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. So we're going to go ahead with the webinar, and if typically speaking, it's a little bit easier for everyone if they start or if they stop their videos. Sometimes it can be a little bit slower, and so if you do or you can turn off your video, that would be great. And of course, please place yourself on mute. And if you have to go back in and come back into the webinar, please just remember to mute yourself. We will be recording this webinar as well. The last two webinars are actually up on our website already, and this one will be joining those three shortly after, so probably within a week or so. I don't want to say something we can't get to, but we'll do our best to get it up. So if you want to share that with any of your friends and colleagues, or if you happen to have to miss part of this today, please do feel free to watch the recorded session. We also do have a chat box today. So if you want to say anything at all, any questions you might have for ourselves, for Dr. Moore, please feel free to do so. What we're going to do is probably take most of those questions at the end of the webinar today, just because it can be a little bit hard to get through the material. And I think for Dr. Moore, it'll be much easier for us to do that. So, but please do, and we'll scroll through them and take note and try and get to all of them as much as we can. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Irene Moore. Thank you so much for taking this opportunity today to reach out to our members across Canada. We really appreciate it. Dr. Moore graduated from the Ontario Veterinary College in 1986 and was in mixed practice for 8 years. Since 1994, she has had numerous roles at the University of Guelph, Ridgetown campus, including instructor, animal colony manager, and coordinator of the veterinary technology program, as well as associate director academic. From 2007 to 2018, she was the associate director academic, and so she oversaw all academic programs at the campus. Irene has also been very involved in a number of committees and associations, both on and off campus. She is also the past president of several veterinary-related organizations, including the OVMA, the Association of Veterinary Technology Educators, and the Ontario Veterinary Technician Educators. Phew, those are all the same, but not because they're different. She is currently chair of the Veterinary Technician National Examining Board, a subcommittee of the American Association of Veterinary State Boards, and also participated in the development of the Qualifying Science Examination for PAVE. Dr. Moore continues to further her own education, completing a college educator development program in 1996, educational leadership in teaching excellence 1 and 2 in 2016, and a master's of science in epidemiology from OVC in 2013. In addition, Dr. Moore has published 2 peer-reviewed publications on veterinary team communication and has spoken at numerous conferences in Canada and the United States on various veterinary education topics. In 2002, Irene was honored by the Ontario Association of Veterinary Technicians when she received the OAVT Veterinary Appreciation Award. In January of 2017, she received an Outstanding Veterinary Award from OVMA for her contributions to the veterinary profession. On that note, it is my pleasure to pass along the screen. Hopefully we'll do this seamlessly to Dr. Moore. Thank you again, and we'll take your chats, as I said, during the meeting. We'll get to them at the end. Super. All right, you've got the screen, Dr. Moore.
Perfect. That's awesome. Anyways, great to see. I can see a few names that I recognize. That's wonderful. And I feel very honored. Thank you again to the CVMA for asking me to present this webinar. As you can tell from my bio, I'm very passionate about both veterinary medicine as well as the whole veterinary team. And because of that, I think knowing about team culture is really valuable. All right, so we'll start off and I will share my screen. Make sure I get the right one. Okay, so Enid, can you just confirm, Enid or Sarah, can you confirm that I've got full screen?
Great.
Okay, perfect. All right, so team culture. Do you have a contaminated Petri dish or a flourishing garden? Sorry, I've got two screens and they're not always syncing. So anyway, we have a bit of a plan for today. So we're going to learn a little bit about what is team culture and maybe what it isn't. Why do we care? Why is it important? And then what about veterinary team culture? Is it any different than for other teams? And also, what is the impact of a toxic team culture? And conversely, what is the impact of a healthy team culture? And last but not least, how are we going to grow a better team culture? All right, so now we're going to play Kahoot. And so hopefully you've had the opportunity to join up there onto Kahoot. And now I'm going to share my screen, which has the pin number. So I have to stop the one share and start another share. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. It also, if you have your smartphone handy, you can also just look at the QR code. So I was just mentioning to Edith and Sarah before we started doing Kahoot with my students. And it's just a great way to have some interactivity. It's a little bit of fun, hopefully, but also just to help me know a little bit about you and where you are right now. And actually, if you join Kahoot, I mean, it might even want to do something like this during some team meetings. Again, just to change things up a little bit. I guess in hindsight, I should have had the game pin up earlier, then you guys could have joined in even during the intro. And by the way, like even you didn't have to put your real name, but even if you do put your real name, no one, it's just anonymous as far as the answers to the questions. Okay, I'm going to give it another 5 seconds or so. So hopefully people have figured it out. And it'll have, I believe, in the corner of the screen. Actually, maybe I'll just write it down too in case people want to find it. So the pin number, game pin is 2514514. Okay, let us start. Okay, so do you have a contaminated Petri dish or a flourishing garden? So I'd like to know, as far as the people here, and of course there's no right or wrong answer, this is just a poll. If you could let me know whether you're a veterinarian, a veterinary technician, a hospital manager, or if you have another role like a CSR, a veterinary assistant, any of the other roles in the field. Okay, so it looks like of the people that have responded, it's mostly veterinarians, but we do have a few of every other group, so that's great. And again, just the game pin is in the corner for those that are just joining us now. Okay, so I'd like to know, so have you had a team member leave in the past 2 years? Yes or no? Okay, so you can see quite a few people have had somebody, and I mean, there's lots of reasons why people could leave, but, and then what about yourself? How likely are you to leave your current job in the next year? Extremely likely, likely, not likely, or extremely unlikely? Okay, well, that's a good sign, extremely unlikely. Unfortunately, at least one person is extremely likely and other people are kind of in between. But overall, it sounds like people are more likely to stay in this group. Actually, I'd have to do the math to figure that out. But anyways, team culture can be improved by having a ping pong table, a place for naps, alignment with clinic and personal values, or Christmas bonuses. Okay, this one does have a right answer, but it is, and we'll be talking a little bit more about this during the presentation, but maybe some of you have read, you know, like Google has like, you know, place for naps and has free snacks and coffee and everything, or so, you know, maybe people think that. And then in fact, a Christmas bonus, well, might be appreciated. Of course, you can actually decrease culture because then it just becomes an expectation. So it's going to cost you money and you're not necessarily getting benefits. So you definitely, it would be alignment with the clinic and personal values. So just out of curiosity, basically there was only the one question that had an actual score. Oh, no, I guess there is another one. Team culture can be changed quickly, true or false? That is correct. It is false. Now, the other thing you might not like to hear is that, particularly if it's a negative culture, it's going to take a while to change, but then also, just like a garden, you have to keep looking after it. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this to click. Another poll, how would you describe the team culture you currently have? We're a family, we have a toxic environment, we come to work to do a job, or we're always trying to improve as a team. Okay, a little bit all over the place, but I mean, it's great that two are actually in the positive side. Not so good to see the toxic environment and just people that are just putting in time to do a job. Because again, you spend a lot of your waking hours at work. So hopefully it can be a positive experience. So let's learn how to grow a flourishing garden. And just, yeah, there's not really a podium per se. I think I have to wait till it finishes that part. But at least number 1840 had some good answers there. So anyway, so we'll just close that up. I'll stop that share and we'll go back to our other share. Okay. Sorry, I just have to get it to go again. There. All right. So what is team culture? So it is actually a little bit difficult to define. And in fact, a lot of people use different terms interchangeably, which makes it even harder to find out if you can find a definite definition. Because some people call it company culture, corporate culture, organizational culture. But you know, for now, we're going to focus more on a team, and again, specifically on veterinary teams a little bit later. But one of the first people to talk about it, they define team culture as the shared values, beliefs, or perceptions held by employees within an organization. So that's one definition. Another person said it's the social glue holding an organization together. That was Tsai in 2011. Another way of people have approached it is that, how do we actually do things? What are we, what are we focused on, and how do we get where we want to be? And again, we talked about, the little bit about that part of having everybody being on the same page. But again, it does involve the personal and professional values, beliefs, and attitudes, and as well as and the behaviors that they express. Another person said, Deal and Kennedy, they were one of the first groups to talk about it. They just said, it's the way things are done around here, which I think, really encompasses things. So other people, or maybe when I was looking for what other people would think about this, there seemed to be some consensus that it was a combination of vision, mission, and values. And maybe those, especially the hospital managers and perhaps the owners of the practices would be familiar with this. And maybe some of you have even had team building activities working on these things. But in a veterinary clinic often, or any business, the leaders are often the ones that initially develop the vision, like an aspirational vision, like a North Star. And they may have, have some ideas about the mission as well, but in order to make it work, they'll want to get their team input as well. And then the values of the individuals in the clinic have to sync as well. So again, this just talks a little bit more about those different areas. So again, the vision, where are we going? And again, you don't want it to be a short-term thing. It's not to be accomplished in a year or two. This is long-term. What kind of practice do you want to have? And then as far as the mission, why do we exist? And how this is a lot of the tangible things, like what are we going to do to get there? And then the values, what do we care about? Do we care about our clients, our patient, each other? Hopefully you care about all of those things, but, to try to prioritize that. And another important part, as you can probably tell, is that you want to have everybody aligned. So basically, you want to have the right person doing the right thing at the right time, but you also want to have some of that structure, but to have a really a good team culture, you also want to have the flexibility that a team member will help another team member where necessary. So why is that team culture important? So there is what we have found in the literature is that workplaces with those healthy cultures report higher levels of employee engagement. In fact, up to 72% higher levels of employee engagement. You're also going to have improved job satisfaction. And I know one report that I had found, it said that satisfied employees are 12% more effective than non-satisfied. I'd argue it could be even higher. And then I read another report, interestingly, it said engaged employees, so not just as satisfied, but truly engaged, are 125% more productive. So that's tremendous when you're talking about your clinic. And then there were 77% of US employees believe that strong organizational culture enables them to produce their best work. So again, it's going to improve the whole practice. And obviously, if people are happy in their jobs, they're satisfied in their jobs, not only are they going to have more effective teamwork, but they're going to want to stay being part of the team. And so again, there'll be less turnover. So what about the opposite? Well, unfortunately, workplaces with toxic cultures, there's going to be poor job satisfaction. In fact, 38% of employees report want to leave their current job due to a negative organization culture or just feeling that they don't fit in. So that's pretty awful. And then, of course, we know that there's a high correlation between job satisfaction and employee turnover. And so we know that negative or a toxic team culture is going to contribute to that. Also, those dissatisfied employees are 10% less productive. So they're not going to be helping the bottom line, and in fact could be negatively impacting the workplace. And I read an interesting thing that the term, I don't know if everybody heard about road warriors. I heard about it in a different terminology, but there was Kaufman and Sorensen. They said retired on active duty. And they estimate that 35% of workers are in that point. So, I mean, those are basically people that are showing up for a paycheck. And also, a lot of this data does come from the US, but 74% of US employees said that they would consider leaving their place of employment if the work culture would decline. So you can see that a lot of people do find work culture important. And even just that workplace, increased absenteeism, that makes sense too, because people just feel, well, it doesn't make a difference if I'm there, or especially if it's that toxic, they feel very uncomfortable or even psychologically unsafe. And then, of course, if there's a toxic work culture, there's going to be more conflict, or likely to be more conflict and unresolved conflict. And so we already knew about team culture, and then came COVID-19, and it just exacerbated the problems that a lot of businesses were already facing. And I don't know how many of you heard the term about the Great Resignation. So this is what we're hearing now as a result of COVID-19, or largely because of COVID-19, because if people were already kind of questioning their jobs, they weren't really happy, this was like the impetus to make them decide to make a big change. People are rethinking their jobs, their priorities, everything in their lives. And in fact, Microsoft, they did a worldwide survey, and they had 30,000 workers, so a pretty large survey, and they found 41% of people were considering leaving their current employer within the next year. So higher than our little survey that we did earlier. 46% were planning to make a major pivot or career transition. So again, almost half of the people. And the other distressing part, it's even higher for Gen Z. And I know you probably all find it a little bit difficult to find, to keep track of which generation is which, but these are the ones 18 to 25 years old. And so a lot of our, especially our newer veterinary technicians, VAs, CSRs are probably in that group. And again, they're even higher than 50%. Another distressing figure is that 1 in 5 of the people felt their employer really didn't care about their work-life balance. And I'm sure you're all hearing about, as time goes on, people don't want to work to live, they want to live to work. Or maybe I got it the other way around, but you know what I mean. And again, of those 30,000 people, 54% felt overworked and 39% felt exhausted. Now, as far as Canada was one of the countries that they did have in additional information about. And there is some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that global workers the workers in Canada have even a higher percentage of people that feel exhausted. And emotional exhaustion is one of the different areas of burnout. Like the other ones are cynicism and professional engagement. And then 51% feel stressed, so even more than the rest of the world. The other thing is they often feel isolated, and maybe that's, just because we don't have as many people, or maybe we had more likelihood of people working from home and not connecting even virtually with other workers. They also feel less freedom to be their authentic selves. And in fact, I guess they compare this from one year to another year. So people don't feel that they can be honest about how they feel about things within their workplace. The only little bright sign is that in general, or just slightly less workers in Canada are likely to consider changing their employers versus the overall global average. So of course you're here, maybe you are interested in general about global, but you're probably much more concerned about veterinary teams. So we already know we have a veterinarian shortage. So we, back in the spring of 2020, the CVMA did a workforce survey. And at that time, they had felt that the demand for veterinary services would exceed the supply by 2040. And so that's partly because the population is increasing largely through immigration, increasing household incomes. And so therefore they're going to have more money available to spend on their pets, more pets in general, because, with immigration and just with the people that are getting to the age that they can be working, they're having more pets. And then even as far as livestock, because we have more people, we need to have more food produced. And therefore, again, you're going to need more large animal veterinarians as well. Now, I would argue that probably COVID, since that was just at the beginning of 2020, I think we might have found out that we're already have a veterinarian shortage even before 2040. Now, of course, the other thing that's contributing to it is that more veterinarians are leaving the profession. And you heard when Dr. John Tate gave his presentation, we have, if you look at the average owner in veterinary practice, they are, in the 60 plus, and so they're considering retirement. But then a lot of people, just because of the pressures in veterinary medicine, they're just looking to do something else. Then, of course, we're also concerned about mental health issues. And part of another survey that the CVMA had done, which I thought was quite alarming, they had found that 26.2 of the veterinarians surveyed, and there were 1,403 people that responded, 26.2, so over a quarter had actually considered suicide in the past year. So that's pretty scary. So, again, the mental health and suicide. And again, I know the CVMA is paying a lot of attention, knowing how important that is. Many clinics are also reporting a hard time finding it hard to hire veterinary technicians and other team members. Now, I'm going to focus, we have more numbers for veterinary technicians because they're in an organized group. But we do know in Canada, there's approximately 13,000 veterinary technicians. And unfortunately, we also know that the average career lifespan is 5 to 7 years. And NAVTA, which is the National Association of Veterinary Technicians in America, they did a great big survey in 2016. And these are some of the top reasons that they found that people leave the veterinary technology profession. So one is going to be low income. And in many places, it's still at, particularly in the US, it's still at poverty level. It's not even enough for a living wage. Now in Canada, it's a little bit higher just because even our minimum wage is a little bit higher. But again, it still becomes an issue when the veterinary technician decides to have a family, or particularly if they become a single mother, because as you probably realize, with still the preponderance of veterinary technicians are young women. Also, burnout and compassion fatigue. And in my research, I had done some research on veterinary teams, and the research that I had done on the whole team, so that included veterinarians as well as other people, they found 22.4 were at the high risk for exhaustion, 23.2 the high risk for cynicism, and 9.3 high risk for professional efficacy. So again, almost a quarter of the veterinarians and the whole veterinary team surveyed were at risk of burnout. Now, a more recent survey, they were looking specifically at veterinary technicians. In fact, 1,642, they found 58.3 of them were in the high risk threshold for emotional exhaustion. And that was a survey done in 2020. So that's even scarier. So that's almost, over double what I had found. Another problem is the lack of recognition and career advancement. They don't feel that they have management support, and that, you know, their skills are not valued. And then that's tied in with the next part, that what they've been trained to do isn't utilized. They're basically holding animals and cleaning kennels. And so again, they're not being leveraged to their full capacity. And again, that underutilization of skills, the NAPTA study, as well as my study, found that there was very strong association between job satisfaction and that utilization. Another problem is just the competition with on-the-job trained technicians, also known as OJTs. And so what a lot of people have found is that a veterinary technician that has just been trained by the clinic and doesn't have any formal credentials are being paid the same and doing the same things as veterinary technicians. And so that makes them really question why they should continue being in that particular position. So what happens when there's too few staff? Well, one of the things, of course, is staff burnout. If you have, less people available, that means you're going to have an increased workload on the remaining staff. It often means that you're going to have no control of your schedule, because if somebody else is going to have to stay overtime and they hadn't planned on it, which is going to create stress if they had to be somewhere else to help their family. Also, even especially with COVID, just dealing with irate clients. A lot of people didn't like curbside delivery of veterinary services, and they'll take it out on the veterinary staff more likely than on the veterinarians, but even just on everybody. Service delays, so there's not staff to be able to admit people. It's just less efficient in the clinic, again, particularly with the curbside service. Even the quality of care can suffer. And, there's more likelihood of mistakes being made if there's because they've got too many animals being looked at by too few staff. And so things get, everybody's just rushing around, and maybe a lack of communication because, again, they've got so many animals that they're trying to look after. And so again, it can lead to medical mistakes as well, or even just client service mistakes. Access to care. So there's no appointments available. I mean, anecdotally, you're hearing many people are waiting months for elective surgeries or even for routine vaccinations. And then just the increased interpersonal conflict, because people are just too stressed out to make the effort. And they're just tired, they're overworked, and then they're more likely to point fingers at, well, it wasn't me, it wasn't my fault, that kind of idea. Now, we already know that a number of veterinary teams already had toxic cultures. And again, this is a little bit from my research. And so toxic attitudes, often on an individual basis, then goes back and forth with the toxic environment. So wanting to be the go-to person, and so they're going to be withholding perhaps information. Mood polluters, they're the ones that are always the negative Nellies, always, they're always looking at the glass of being half empty and half full, just brings everybody down. Personality issues, whether it be actual, just where people just don't agree, the way they look at life. Again, maybe not having those values, or maybe you have one person that is very assertive, and yet you have another person that easily offended by that, even though the persons might not have intended that. And then you have, that's not my job. You have the people that, if it's not my job description, I'm not doing it. Then you have those that either lack the confidence to do what they actually know how to do, or maybe they do actually lack the skills or knowledge and then just keep on doing it anyway. And then the toxic environment, changing the rules, this especially if the leaders of the practice, they'll say you have to do it this way, but then the next day they make an exception. So again, that ties in with lack of leadership, lack of consequences. So if people don't do what they're supposed to do, nothing happens. Not feeling appreciated. So people just don't, people are trying to do their best, but no one recognizes it. Having unreasonable expectations. So again, it's just so busy. You can only look after 10 patients at a time. And now I have 5 more that are coming in for emergencies. And just coping with turnover. Again, you don't have, it's, trying to redevelop a new team, or again, because you're going to just be that much more busy and having to train new people and they don't know the way you do things. And so that just means maybe it's just easier to do it yourself rather than, having to try to train somebody. So you can see all of those things lead to problems. And again, the thing that I had earlier, or that sort of the graphic that I just showed you, that was from a number of focus groups. But then I also did some work with the whole veterinary team. And these are just some of the statements that came out of that. So I'm pulled in, and you can see how they relate to a lot of those things. So you're pulled in too many directions, you're overloaded, you've got those conflicting messages. People, you're doing what you're supposed to do, but then someone else just says, oh no, it's okay for Mrs. Jones, we'll do this for her. Communication breakdowns, tension, frustration, the negative attitudes, uncertainty, people that resist change, people that actively undermine other people, particularly in front of clients. And then again, not doing their job or not doing a job if they don't feel it's necessary. And so we do know from my research, as well as a number of others, both in veterinary teams as well as in other workplaces, again, there is that correlation. As job satisfaction decreases, you're more likely to have increased turnover. And again, the toxic work environment also, again, leads to the decreased job satisfaction and increased turnover. And then people, we have, especially in veterinary medicine, we don't have especially if you're in one city, like people talk, right? And if people know that a particular clinic has a toxic environment, they're going to have a harder time attracting people to that clinic as well. So hopefully you can see that improving team culture can improve retention and recruitment. So okay, so you can tell by a lot of what I've said, team culture is a bit of a qualitative thing. I mean, that's why you're going to use questions that, that you're asking about how people feel. And so that's why some people will use team measures that actually look at engagement, because there is, as you can imagine, a correlation between team culture and team engagement. And so there are a number of different instruments out there. One instrument that some people use is the Q12 Gallop. You've probably heard about Gallop surveys before. And so things like, I know what's expected, I have the materials and equipment I need, I have the opportunity to do what I do best, that you've received recognition and praise, supervisor seems to care about me, someone at work encourages my development, my opinions seem to help. The mission or purpose makes me feel my job is important. Everyone I work with is committed to doing quality work. You have a best friend. Someone talked to me about my progress. And last year I had the opportunities to learn and grow. And so many of you, if you ever took a psychology course back in undergrad, have heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And in fact, that Gallop one was designed around this. So some of those initial questions are just looking at those basic needs. So, we need to have food, water, warmth, and rest. So you have to have that living wage. Safety needs, the security and safety. We're going to be talking a little bit about psychological safety, where people feel comfortable to express themselves. And then you have things about those other psychological needs, feeling that you're making a difference, that you have friends, that, have your back. And then ultimately you're hoping that you'll get to the point where you have self-actualization, and so that you're able to be the best person and are able to have the best team that you can be. So again, a little bit of my research, I had developed an individual engagement. This was one of the items, or not one of the items, but one of the themes that had been developed. So you can see a lot of similarities. So you have a voice in the decisions made in the clinic. So people, and again, that ties back to what we were hearing about veterinary technicians, what is important. They want to feel that, that they are able to contribute and that they feel their opinion is listened to, that they're recognized as an important part of the member of the team, that they're not, just a holder and a cleaner upper. And then feeling comfortable if they, speaking up if they have a problem. So, feeling that they can talk to the other people, other team members. I'm encouraged to expand my knowledge so that I can not only do what I have to contribute is valued, but then I can even contribute more. Also, staff has input into, the full utilization again that I'd mentioned. People like to have input who else is hired. They want to have some input of who else is going to be the newest team members, because again, they're going to have to work with them. My opinion is listened to in the clinic. And then again, just the adequate financial compensation so that they have a living wage. So let's talk about some methods that we can actually grow that healthy team culture. So this is, I developed this based on some of my work, but then also reading what I was reading about other team cultures, organizational cultures. And this is, again, my opinion, but you'll notice communication is in the middle. And I did notice Becky Taylor, just a shout out to her. I know that she would certainly concur with this, but I feel communication is the center of everything, because without effective communication, none of the rest is going to happen. So some of the other parts, the psychological safety, that people feel comfortable, that they can be vulnerable, reliable leadership, that consistency, that they do what they say what they do, trust and respect within the workplace, and then again, the opportunity to grow. I'll talk a little bit more about that here as well. So the communication needs to be both informal and informal. So formal, things like having team meetings, but having everyone present at those team meetings and having the opportunity, everybody to contribute to those. But then also informal meetings, like just having those little informal huddles at the beginning of a shift or at the end of the shift, so everybody knows who's in the clinic, what else is new. Did we get are there any clients that were or patients that were particularly worried about coming in? And part of that communication leads to a common understanding. So everybody, again, is on that same page. The other thing about the communication is that you're able to get that continuous feedback to each other. So then that psychological safety that I've touched upon several times. So people feel safe and supported, that they can feel that they can be vulnerable, that they can feel they can be honest if they've made a mistake, or that they feel maybe that they recognize that somebody else is making a mistake and they don't feel that, oh, well, if I say that, that person's going to be mad at me. That they feel that they can, again, have that vulnerability. That trust and respect, again, it leads to autonomy and efficiency. So they trust other people to have their back. They know that other people respect their skills and their abilities. Then as far as the reliable leadership, again, as I mentioned, they need to be able to walk the talk. They need to, if they say, no, we don't tolerate incivility, for instance, which is, even whether it be like microaggressions or major things, like whether it be gossip, if they're the ones that are gossiping, or they're the ones that come to, and are mood polluters that come in a bad mood, I mean, that's not reliable leadership. They have to exemplify, the ultimate, they have to show that they are in turn a good team member. And just providing growth opportunities for everybody on the team to learn and to share their knowledge. And, so as far as that goes, everybody on the team that have the opportunity to go to CE, and a lot of CE is either free or inexpensive. And then, having the opportunity for them to bring that back to the team just to enhance everybody's work in the team. So a lot of times you hear about growing a healthy team culture, again, having a growth culture versus maybe a performance obsessed one. So again, the growth one is focused on everybody in the team being the best that they possibly can be. And so, and again, having, bringing that back and having that feedback when they are doing something right, have that acknowledged. And then conversely, having them acknowledge if they do something wrong, but do it in a way that is respectful. And people do make mistakes. People are people. So I really like this quote from Mahatma Gandhi. And I think if you just substitute team culture for happiness, it kind of gets the same idea across. So happiness or team culture is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are all in harmony. So, everybody on the team, they all have the same values. They're all striving for that same North Star. They all have the same idea of how to get there. And just going back to happiness again, I just wanted to share this. So again, maybe some teams would benefit by having cookies, but anyways, I'll just share this. Hopefully it'll work. Oh, you won't be able to hear it maybe. Here, let me see if I can make it louder. Oops. Oh, shoot. So anyway, so just in summary then, who benefits from a healthy team culture? Well, the veterinary team is going to benefit because they're going to be more engaged in their work. They're going to have a higher job satisfaction. They're going to be more likely to want to, go further to serve those, to do the best they can be. The veterinary clinic, there is going to be some positive effects on the bottom line as well, because people are going to be more productive. You're going to have less turnover, and of course turnover costs a lot of money, and training and recruitment, and even just having the right people doing the right thing. Our clients are going to benefit. You probably have all felt it is just much better to go into work where you feel everybody is happy to be there, that they all know what they're doing, and they're getting consistent messaging. And then last but absolutely not least, our patients are going to benefit because you have, again, the right people doing the right thing at the right time. Most of us, the good news is that most of us are there because we do want the best for our patients. And that can be something that we can certainly build on in terms of a common understanding. And thank you very much for your attention. So I will stop my share now. And now, if there were any questions that came up, I'd certainly love to address them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moore. I've got a few comments in the chat box. One of them coming through with respect to the Barrett Values Center and having great resources on cultural change. And certainly some comments on your great communication being so important. So thank you. And I can appreciate the cookies. So I think that we should all have a nice big cookie after this and hopefully feel the joy. I don't know if anybody has any particular questions. They are welcome to just turn on or turn off, I should say, your mute button if you want to share and your video, or you can write a little question here in our chat box. I will, while we're waiting for a few questions to come in, I'm going to just share something quickly with you all. And it is actually about, I think it's very timely that we have this up today. Hold on, I'll just play it. And that is that we actually have a, hold on one second. Just get rid of my chat box there because that's in the way. We actually, with CVMA, and so all members of CVMA as well as students can access a new peer-to-peer program. And it's a platform, it's called Together All. And I think that, to Dr. Moore's point, with what we're dealing with currently with our profession, this is just another way for people to speak to their peers, to feel support. And although, it may not be directly within your own team, you can share it with your team. And that is another place for them to receive support and speak to one another in a safe environment. And we'll go to the questions in a second, but just to say also that there was some comments about receiving these the videos from the last 2 webinars as well as this one upcoming. So already on our landing page, if you go to canadianveterinarians.net, and it's a little hard to see, but if you actually just look down on the landing page, you'll see a section that sort of says news. And if you scroll down in there, you'll see that up will come the various news items, including the videos of these past webinars. So please just check that out. And we're going to be getting a new website soon. Hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to manage, but it's there, I promise. The material is there from the last 2 weeks and from this amazing and extraordinary opportunity that we had with Dr. Moore today to discuss some extremely important ways to help our culture, because of course we talk about retention. This is the best way to keep them, is to have that culture. So I don't know, Sarah, if you can see the chat box, because when I'm sharing, of course, I'm not in. If there's any questions that you see, or Dr. Moore, if you have anything else you'd like to share.
Actually, I see that somebody from Evolve shared a couple of neat resources for cultural change initiatives. And yeah, I'd love to look at those as well. And what else is there? Yeah, communication's the center of everything. Yeah, as far as their best practices for teams in veterinary medicine, as I said, I had done the one study that had some information. There's a couple other ones. If you even just Google, and you go to the scholar part of Google, there are, especially with, you can find some information on that. That was where some of those stats that I got from there as well. As far as AHA did a team culture survey back in 2016, but they, it was interesting. They found teams that were smaller, which I guess isn't surprising. They had higher levels of team culture. They had better relationships with the veterinarians. They had lower gross income, but a higher FTE per veterinarian as well. So, I mean, I guess that all fits with a smaller team, but it would be great if somebody did more work on that.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you again, Sarah and Dr. Moore as well.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you.